Hey, Austin.
Hey Ted, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's been a little bit. Nice to connect to you.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a while, couple weeks.
Yeah. Sounds to me like you have some good stories to debrief me on.
Yeah, I had we actually talked about it in the last debriefing of mine. Uh, it's a Path A client that I had. We did some work there, and actually ended up going back and doing a little bit more work, but we were able to avoid any uh, doing any work for free. So kind of catch you up to speed a little bit. So we had a pretty bad cold snap here a couple weeks ago, where we got really busy. We were down in the negatives for a couple days, and naturally, if you have an oversized furnace or half high duct pressure, that's going to be the time where you notice it because your furnace is trying to run a lot longer, and they tend to overheat in those conditions. So this is a client that had a compromised heat exchanger on a 100,000 BTU furnace that was paired with a 3-ton heat pump. They wanted to replace both pieces of equipment. Um, and they were presented a Path B option to go with the comfort console. But keep in mind, it was -4 degrees outside and they had no heat. So we foregoed the Path B and went with Path A, the likely load range. And we dropped the size of the furnace down from 100K to a 60K and put in a 310 Greenspeed heat pump and did, slight duct modifications at first, put in a trunk line down in the crawl, where before they just had two pieces of round pipe supporting all the registers. So we did a little bit of work there. Uh, After we did the install and we're commissioning the system, the installers discovered that the system did have high static pressure. So I went back to the clients and let them know that, hey, we're done with the install. This is the duct pressure. So the duct pressure on the previous unit was high as well. So changing units and downsizing, we didn't know what the duct pressure was going to be, obviously. If I set a number, that would be me pulling it out of air. So we waited till we got it installed. The duct pressure was still high when the furnace would go into high stage heating. So it was a very good thing that we did drop down the sizing of the furnace because if not, they would 100% have big issues. But we ended up, I called the client, let them know, hey, you guys have high duct pressure. We had this conversation beforehand. They watched a video on duct pressure, the 6 functions video. So they had an idea. I let them know that, hey, we could add additional returns. Um, this would be the price associated to do so. So it was completely transparent about everything beforehand and all throughout the process. And whereas in previous instances, we've had installs that maybe have issues or don't go ideal, and we have to turn around and give the clients things that maybe they should have paid for from the start for free. This call went me running it, finding some discrepancies after the install, but letting the homeowners know, hey, this is what you had prior. This is the improvements that we did, and this is where you're at currently. What would you like to do moving forward? So we got a little bit more work from them. They wanted to go ahead and add a return. So we quoted that out, did the work. And then I actually went back today just to check it over, look at everything, look at the duct pressure and the different staging of the equipment. So in low stage, it's good at about 0.49. Then high stage, we are high up around the 0.8s in high stage. So again, I went over all of that with the homeowner, showed them everything at the thermostat. Um, and now we're at a place where we're not going to do anything else moving forward unless something substantial comes up. But he did voice to me that there has been an improvement in their comfort, even with the high duct pressure, right? There's been an improvement in their comfort. The equipment is quieter and the rooms are more consistent in temperature within one another. So even though the system isn't operating ideally within the specifications that it should in high stage, there has still been substantial comfort or still been substantial improvements within the situations that they have in the home.
So do you think, sounds like the way you set it up using the free quote process, the homeowner understood their risks and um, therefore didn't blame you because they knew in advance the risks that they were taking?
Yes, yeah, and I mean, um, I did give them options, when they were picking their install on things to do with ductwork and some things like fresh air, for example, was an offer decline that I had, and they chose to decline that. Um, ventilating dehumidifier, they are on a ventilated crawl space, so we had all those conversations. So going in, following the process, it was able to educate them a lot more versus maybe me just going out and saying this is the furnace and this is the price, and then they not know all the other circumstances that they got going on with the house, right?
And in that situation, if some other salesperson had gone out there not using the HVAC20 free quote process, what do you think the likely situation would have been?
Well, it could have been very badly, because it's not kind of our for majority of comfort consultants, unless they just come across something that they think is 100% oversized. For the most part, we're doing a like for like replacement, and we pulled out a 100K furnace in that house, and if we would have went back with the 100K furnace, even with doing the modifications that we have made, I mean, we're sitting at a point 0.8 static pressure in high stage versus a 100K furnace would have been way more than that. So not only from we would have ran the risk to maybe not having improvements to the client's comfort, but also from like a warranty aspect, um, that
You
very
would have
well
been
could have
way
came
over.
and bid us. Yeah,
It would have been kind of a disaster if you had gone back with another 100,000 BTU furnace.
yeah. Now the outdoor unit, the heat pump, we did technically stay the same size. A lot of that, my likely load was coming in at about 2.5 tons. So you got to go with the nominal 2, 3, or 4, or 5 sizing in those units. So
Right, but that ranges down to 7,500 BTUs, right?
yeah, yeah. So they're completely covered there. And
Uh-huh.
I had the questions that we ask within the process. Do you plan on making any other improvements to the house? Things like that. That's all information that was obtained and documented from our initial conversation.
Okay, do you
So
remember when you did this, had we already come out with the green, yellow, red on likely load range, or was that before it?
I think that might have been this job wasn't very long ago. I mean, it was
Okay.
probably 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Okay.
So
How did
wasn't
they,
very long ago at all.
on the sizing, what did they lean towards? Did they lean towards the green or towards the yellow or towards the red?
Kind of towards the green there. Oh, that's what you're asking about. Okay, so towards the smaller sizing, yes, they did.
Okay.
Um, so like I said, there has been improvements to their comfort. They are happy with the way everything feels, looks, and sounds.
Okay. And
It's
what was the
quieter.
size of the house again?
I'm driving right now, but I want to say it was like if we're counting the basement in total, like 2,800, like 2,000 above grade.
Okay. Okay. So
So
you might have done better, a little better with a 2-ton heat pump, but I don't know, right?
yeah, it's the a good portion of the main floor is on a ventilated crawl. And from our initial conversations, they have no
Intention.
desire plans to encapsulate that at all. So
Okay.
that was taken into consideration. And I
Okay.
did tell them that with the sizing, if you guys go and make improvements, it's going to change the load on the house.
Right, but it sounds like you're going to have enough range in that heat pump that probably just won't end up using the furnace at all. Because what is the ranging on that furnace?
Yeah, I was getting like in my good range, 48, 50,000 BTs of heat from. Are you talking about my load, or what's the range of that furnace? Like, what does it go down to capacity wise?
What's it go down to?
40.
Okay. So at this point, it sounds to me like they probably could survive just on that heat pump. What's the airflow of 40,000 on that furnace?
I have pictures of it because I just went and did like airflow verifications in every setting. I don't
Okay.
remember what the CFM was, but I do remember the duct pressure. It was like a point 0.4 and
Okay.
low.
So and then what was the pressure of the heat pump on high?
That was pretty good too. Now we do have like the airflow settings set to comfort, so that reduces the airflow, all that stuff.
Okay.
But that was low as well, around like the point threes to point fours
Okay.
with
So
the airflow reduced.
they've got 3 ton of ductwork.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, probably
Now,
a little
now with the
shy on that,
improvements
but
with the improvements that you've done.
yeah, pretty close to that.
And how much were the improvements?
Like cost wise,
Yes.
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know total the project was like after the little bit of work that we just did, like 27K.
Okay.
They did get the greens like the highest tier dual fuel equipment. So MN7 gas furnace with the Greenspeed heat pump.
Okay, and they did that
So
because of tax credits or something?
yeah, yeah, they'll get the tax credits on the back end there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So this house would have been probably very well suited to just go straight heat pump
Electrify, yeah.
because then they
And I
might
give
have where do you remember where it was before you did the duct improvements on that heat pump? Was that heat pump
the duct.
short?
Yeah, yes, yeah. The duct system before we touched it was they would be lucky to get 2 tons of airflow out of it. I mean, it was
Okay.
just so. Like I
Okay.
said, they have 4 branch lines that would go to multiple Y-offs and pass-throughs to support the entire first floor of the house.
Now,
Um,
this improvement to the ductwork, if you had to guess, how much was the go back price?
are you saying if they didn't do any of the duct work,
Yeah, no,
or do you mean
I
like
mean,
ballpark cost?
like the total job was 27. Did
Mm-hmm.
you charge him another 3 grand for the ductwork you just did, or was it 4 grand?
Probably 4 or 5, yeah.
Okay, so so
So
so $4,000 to $5,000 of improvement that was a risk that they were willing to take as opposed to an angry client who felt
yeah, and
entitled to have you guys fix this stuff and then possibly still angry because they didn't understand that risk, that they were being given that risk without having it expressed to them.
correct. like the trunk line that was put in the crawl space, for example, it did just have two pieces of round pipe coming off. The main driving factor in why that trunk line was even installed was because they had asked about dehumidification. And so then that got us into the conversation of whole home dehumidification. And the only way to go back and put in a whole home dehumidifier was to put in a trunk line in the crawl space. So as I said earlier, I offered declined that, and they declined it now, but wanted to set things up to where it could be installed in the future, right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
they were, like I said, they picked their install, they picked their equipment,
Taking
and
total ownership of deficiencies of the house because it was explained to them, as opposed to later on being pissed that the new equipment doesn't solve all these problems and in fact creates new ones.
correct. And now, it wasn't. There's improvements that we made, like it wasn't lined, so like we lined the metal because it's in an unconditioned space, things like that, right? But
Okay.
now it's to where, did everything go like hunky dory and perfect? No, but were the results still good for the client and the company? Yes. So they are, I don't want to say like, I mean, I'm sure they might care a little bit, but like I said, I walked through everything very transparent with them and the duct pressure and all of that. And I don't want to say they didn't care, but it kind of came across to me like they were like, "Who gives a shit?" You know, um, we're comfortable. It's quieter. Those were really the things that were big factors for them, right? Those were addressed. So could it have gone better? Yeah, but it still ended up in a really good experience for both parties. Does that all make sense from my
Yeah,
perspective?
and I'm wondering, because you do some of the warranty calls on situations like this for the other salespeople in your organization. Um, I'm wondering if those warranty expenses versus being turned into revenue opportunities is something that matters to management. And if it does matter to management, the next question I have is the so you're a black belt. You know, you're a master's level HVAC 2.0 Sandler comfort consultant. I'm wondering if a non-master's level Sandler HVAC 2.0 free quote salesperson would, I'm wondering if the process is good enough that you wouldn't need to be a master. In other words, would would a good salesperson in your organization have had the same experience?
Yeah, I think as long as everything's documented in good upfront contracts and conversations are had.
So in other
But yeah, I
words,
think
process would have locked in the same scenario for somebody who's not a master because the process is tight. So long as they follow the process.
yeah, because I mean within that process, it's all those questions are scripted, for the
Right.
like it's there, you just got to read it. So as long as you ask the questions, do a little bit of Sandler to, pull out the real information and the in situations, then and you document that and just have an adult to adult relationship, then you're golden, right?
Yeah, it sounds
From
to me
my
like you
experience,
still have a
anyway.
nice relationship with these people, whereas you probably wouldn't right now.
Yeah, before I've had instances where things like this can go badly, or well, you told me it was going to fix this. And if I did this, you said it was going to do that. Well, that's the great thing about the odds of success, right? I didn't tell you anything was going to happen. And, this client, I feel like I did a pretty good job of that. This client asked, we're reducing the size of the equipment. What's our duct pressure going to be? My answer was, I don't know.
Right.
What I can tell you is we will test it after the equipment is installed and we will let you know what improvements were made. And that's what we did. And unfortunately, we needed to do a little bit more work, and honestly, still probably could. But what is it's like that diminishing returns thing, right? If all of their main goals and concerns were addressed, then they might not be in a place to want to go do anything else, right? If they're now comfortable and their main concerns were noise, comfort, and inconsistent temperatures from floors and rooms. And all of those things have been approved. If so far from my conversations with them to their liking.
Was the reason they did the duct improvement primarily because you had high numbers, or were they also hoping for other observable improvements?
So that's kind of a hard question to answer because I wasn't the first company. We weren't the first company in. So another company had been doing work for them for a while and had told them issues about duct work. So they had told them, hey, you need more duct work here. You need to do this aero seal. You need to do this, 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 and this. Well, there for a while, the company would say, hey, you need to do this. They would do it, and then there would still be issues, right? So they were just kind of going one thing after another. Well, if this don't work, try this. If this don't work, try this. And throw in things and seeing what would stick on the wall. And they got tired of it, essentially. Um, so when I was out there, they were like, well, we think these guys were just blowing smoke. And what I told them was, I'm not going to say they were wrong because I don't know exactly what they were talking about and referencing. But let's look at things and we can kind of go from there. So, like, they knew about their return ductwork being less than ideal and kind of had the assumption that their supply was less than ideal as well. But it was good for me to get that information to kind of taper expectations on, these were your issues. Here's what an aero seal is. Do you think that would fix these issues? And if I do aero seal your ductwork and it doesn't, are you going to be upset with me? So that was kind of the range of conversations that were had along the ductwork. And then options were given to them to make adjustments, and they didn't do all of it. They did what they were comfortable with and what they thought would be beneficial to address their issues. And that's what we did.
So how did the additional ductwork happen? Were there any comfort issues, or were they?
Yes. So the rooms upstairs were hot in the summertime, cold in the winter. Or I'm sorry, hot in both the summertime and in the wintertime. They
So
keep
so even with the new equipment that you installed, the rooms were still uncomfortable.
Are you talking about after the install? I'm sorry.
Yes. So I'm trying to understand, you installed the equipment.
Yeah.
What happened after you installed the equipment that
To
prompted
lead to more duct work. Okay,
was
gotcha.
was that just because of the high static and they're worried about
Yes, that was
longevity?
correct. Static
Okay.
pressure.
Okay.
So we did initial duct work, like slight things, right? And then we ended up going back and doing a little bit more return duct work. So we made it essentially the best we can, um, like without doing anything against code or tearing open walls, essentially.
Right. So in other words, they were already happy with the comfort improvement. And so they
Yeah.
just did the additional work to protect the equipment. They didn't do it
Yes, to get
for.
static pressure lower.
Okay. Has there been
Yeah,
any
and I'm sorry, I
time
might not
since you,
explain that as
yeah, has
good.
there been any time since you did the return improvement?
About 2 or 3 days.
You haven't talked to them by any chance to find out if there was any further improvement?
Yeah, like I just went out there today.
Oh,
Like when I called you earlier, that was so that was about 2 days ago that's been in.
okay. So that's been in for 2 days. Did they notice anything change just as a result of the return ductwork improvement?
No, no, not nothing of the one additional return really. No.
No, no
I just
change to them. Okay.
no, not really. No.
So they were
I
they
just
were
asked them.
the comfort improvement that they experienced um, was so good that they're like, well, these guys know what they're talking about. They're suggesting that we get this ductwork. We're going to follow their advice.
Yeah, yeah, and it was your duct pressure's high. I reversed that back to them. What would you like to do? There's always the option to do nothing. See how things are. And they wanted to do that kind of right away. And like I said, it didn't make astronomical changes to the duct pressure, but it got them below an inch of water column. Um, and like I said, now they're at a point to where even back today, I was like, well, this is where your duct pressure's at currently. We could do the rest of the stuff we recommended, or if you're comfortable and happy with everything, you can leave it alone.
Hey,
And that's what,
if that 3 ton heat pump is running under half an inch, they're probably great,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
worst case, well, you're going to be able to see if that equipment ever runs high fire on the furnace. And that's the only
right,
thing that's running above half an inch is high fire in
correct.
the furnace.
Yep. At like, I think it's 1,050 or 1,060 CFM.
If they're not using setback, that'll probably never happen.
Right.
Um,
And they are consistent. They don't even utilize the schedule. Like they don't want to set up the schedule or anything. They are set it and forget it type
they're set and
people
forget it,
on the
folks.
thermostat.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. You could even have a conversation with them about locking the furnace out, couldn't you?
Yeah. And we kicked that around today. I called Ryan, we talked about it. And we decided to go ahead and just leave it in the system and control, leave it the
Okay.
variable. And, they have my contact information. That Scott's super cool guy. So they know if they do run into anything. I like to stay in the loop on that kind of stuff as well, so I can just make note of it. Um, I'm I'm 100% positive that they would reach out.
Right. And Josh can watch that system and let you know.
Right. Yep.
Well, that is fantastic news, Austin. Are you gonna I guess you can take this video and send it
Yeah.
up the flagpole and see whether they decide maybe they want to start considering using the free quote process for the sales crew, the rest of the sales crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like this
Definitely
could save a
works.
lot in both relationship between the customers and the salespeople, relationship between the customers and the company, um, and warranty reserve wasteful spend.
Right. Yeah. Versus, like I said, they were completely, uh, very rarely do, or in my experience anyway, does a client purchase something and then when you go back and say, oh, you may want to think about doing this, do they take that very well? But this was, okay, we knew about that. Let's go ahead and add the return.
We
So
perfectly understood that risk when we were installing it. It's turned out to be exactly what you suggested. So let's do it.
yep.
That's so Austin. Awesome, Austin. So Austin. Hey,
Those could be synonyms, right? Interchangeable with one another.
yeah, awesome, Austin. That's going to be your new nickname, buddy. Uh, all right. I'm going to end our recording here.